This is Heather Lockett with Lasting Conversations, and we're having so much fun. We're going to be talking about families and food and stories today with Nancy May. Hey, Nancy, how are you today?
Hey, Heather, how you doing? It's great.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm so glad that we hopped on together. We connected. I know we must have connected in our paths cross at PodFest back in January, but it was when I was actually utilizing their Facebook group that you came to mind, and your very logo, it's adorable. And I just needed to tap in. And then we found out that you are a fellow New Englander now living in Florida, such as myself. And so we're going to be off to the races talking about amazing things that tie us together as community, tie us together as family, as humans on this planet. And the thing that keeps us literally alive is food. You need water. I don't know. Well, people do talk around the water cooler, so that's kind of cute. But
Yeah.
really, it is food and meals and what brings us together as cultures. So welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Heather. It's great to be here and to find another fellow or, I guess, sister New Englander. I say
Nice.
I've gone from nutmeg and Boston baked beans to I am now Gator Girl.
Oh,
So,
now you're a Gator girl. And as a UF mom, you got to do
yeah.
the clap. So, so Nancy is an old pro at the mic. You've had two really great podcasts previously. You're a business professional, you're an author, you're extremely well rounded, and now you have a new passion, or you're blending all your passions in with a co founder and friend, Sylvia Lovely, with Family Tree Food and Stories. So tell us about all of these amazing things.
Oh, I think we all come full circle at one point in our lives, or maybe we never leave the circle, I should probably
I love
say,
that.
right?
We never leave
We
the
never leave
circle.
the
It's a
circle.
spiral. Yeah, we never leave the
Yeah.
circle.
And food, growing up as a kid, I was the one they had to hide the cookies from.
Another kindred sister.
No,
It's all
I know
about
it.
the
I
cookies.
knew where they are. I think I had a telepathic connection to Oreos.
Oh, this is so funny already. In a
But
room with 100 people, you just need to know where the cookies are.
you're just right. The
You just
cookies,
need
and
to
yeah, my
know.
dad was the ice cream fiend, but like, no,
Yeah.
give me the Oreos. That was before double stuff, but even still. Food plays a part in our lives. It was,
Right.
my mom was, God love her, she was not the best cook, but she wasn't a terrible cook. And over the years, I learned that, geez, there really is something besides Campbell's cream of mushroom soup on everything.
Again, parallel lives.
It depends upon where you grew up and what you did. And I
What
did
did
an
you add the
episode,
sherry or vermouth to it and bake it in chicken and call it, a special casserole?
gourmet,
Yeah,
gourmand.
I have family members that will literally never touch a baked chicken like that again because we had it way too often with the cream of mushroom soup.
Although she had some kind of recipe, I have no idea. I would love to recreate it. It was pork chops when pork chops really tasted good like pork chops. And
Right.
she would brown them in a pan and add ketchup and French onion soup or something to them. And they were amazing. And I can't find that recipe anywhere. So if anybody is listening, has that recipe, please let me know, because I've never tasted a pork chop taste that as good as it did back then. But maybe it was the sugar and the sauce that tasted so good. I don't know. If she had an
And your
Oreo
mother's
chew, I would have
love.
eaten it.
Yeah, yeah. That's adorable. That's
Yeah.
adorable. So yes, this is for me personally. This is a bit of another circle moment as I we are connecting and talking about that very thing and the conversation around the table, because in many ways that's how this Lasting Conversations podcast has started, which was 2 years ago. So I'm entering my third year of Lasting Conversations, and so the very art of conversation, or what would have been the passions, had to do with, I grew up with tea parties. We had tea with my at my grandmother's house, and then of course the Thanksgivings and things. So it is about family and community and the tales around the table. And so I love that you are putting together everything that you have done with your previous podcast and your previous business, and your next leveling. You're literally creating a whole new platform that brings us back together around a table or even across the Zoom and
Mhm.
microphones. So tell us more about these stories.
Well, the stories really run the gamut from we're doing one on which I think it's already released in our just we're actually releasing today as we're recording. We our first shows were out on just even food superstitions. There's so much around food that makes our lives rich in ways that we don't even think about.
Right.
And you had mentioned even my corporate background. So I'm not sure if corporations are doing it now so much anymore, but when I was much younger and going into the workforce, you were invited out to have a meal with the company that was hiring you to make sure that you had the manners, that you had the poise at the table, that you knew not to drink too much if you were offered a drink, when to do it, how to handle it. And if you didn't, well, I guess if they believed in you enough, they would send you to table manners charm school. I know people who ran those places, right? But it's not so much the food and how you handle yourself, which is important. It's the art of the conversation around the table,
Right.
right? Whether that be for a job or to make a sale or just to be able to have a conversation with a cousin you may not like so much and leave the table and not have a food fight. Right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Ex-
and food is so important. I remember as a kid, my mom would, learning to read as an early child, she said, how am I going to get you to enjoy reading? And I didn't like to read books. I like to read short stories, which was my thing. I guess maybe podcasting fits into that too, because they're short.
Mhm.
And, and so we had a neighbor who was a remedial reading teacher. And she says, I'm going to help Nancy really enjoy reading, and we read the back of recipe cards and books, Toll House cookies. How do you follow instructions? How do you go through that? So even learning to follow instructions is
Right.
so important around the foods that we eat and how we do it and how we prepare and how we show love and expression for those that we care about, and even creativity. It's the foibles and the goof ups and the things that we don't do so well that I say are delicious in different ways, right?
Absolutely. And of course, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of different vignettes. And I will land in where it'll be November, and in the States, we've got Thanksgiving. You talk about the foibles and mistakes. I have a dear friend of mine who years and years ago, something happened with Thanksgiving, and the proverbial, it was in the oven, but it was still frozen, or something
Oh,
landed on the
yeah.
floor. It was just an utter chaos. So I don't know what they ended up doing that day on the Thursday, but we had leftovers. So I brought all the fixins, and it just, and I love her because she would find humor even in the craziest, saddest moments. And you have that part of your tagline with your emails. There's food and there's humor, and when we can blend the two in crazy, including the crazy cousin or aunt or whoever it is, that's what makes us human. And when
Absolutely.
these things can go absolutely awry, how to circle back, or just chuck it out the window. Because the other thing that you were talking about with the recipes and the following of instruction,
Mhm.
I marvel at bakers, especially. You have to follow the instruction because of the science. And I might be more of a one pot wok stir fry person, add a little of this and a soupçon of that. So that love and that joy, whether it's around a stove, around a table, creating the food, creating the recipes, what works and what doesn't. These are all the things that are, that's the fun part. It really is.
And I have to say, I don't enjoy cooking every day. I'm not like your person who was, well, going back to when my husband and I first got married, we ended up with like pasta every day because I we both worked. And one day he says, "Do you think you could make something other than pasta?" And I said, "Do you think you could make something other than pasta?" So I had two roles. Whoever I was ever going to marry, if I ever got married, was I was thinking as a kid. One, they had to be able to do their own laundry, and
Yep.
two, they had to be able to cook something
Yep.
because I'm not doing either. Well, we share, so It's how you share the kitchen and what you do, because that's where we bond in many ways. And just the other day, we were talking about thinking about turkey, right? Which is Thanksgiving is coming up. And I learned from my mother-in-law to put strips of bacon over the turkey. She said that way
Oh,
it doesn't burn. Well, I never burned a turkey anyway. My mom told me how to
right.
do that one. But she put the strips of bacon on it. So we would do that. We'd brine a turkey for a big Christmas party that we do every year. And it was just yesterday that he said, you know, that wasn't Barbara's recipe to put the bacon on. That was her grandmother's. And I said, are you kidding me? So it was my great grandmother-in-law who now passed down this story that I didn't know about till just the other day. I said, that is so cool. I'm I guess I'm part of that family too. And I didn't even know it other than
And
marriage.
that's oh, that's so great, and that's great. And I have, and growing up, we would have Swedish pancakes, almost like the crepes from the
Yeah.
old 1960s cookbook, and that was our family thing growing up. That I made them for my brothers and my family. Then my brother, when he got married, or both of my brothers wanted that recipe. Heather, what's that recipe? And then I gave that to my sister-in-law, and now my daughter-in-law. So these things that we can pass down, and of course everybody does their own thing and adds things or and tweaks things. But I love that you got to find out, wait, bacon over turkey, that's a new perspective. That's something I'd never heard
Right.
of until you just mentioned it, and that it came from your husband's grandmother or great grandmother is spectacular.
Yeah, right. And it's just fascinating to see where the little twists and tweaks and turns. And family doesn't have to be blood relations or marriage relations. Family
Right.
can be part of your friends, because sometimes our friends are closer to us than our family, and the traditions that they have and share are fun. I had a dear friend who grew up in Tallahassee area, Florida, and she was Swedish heritage, but they made pralines or pralines, as I was told. And she would always bring at Christmas time her pralines or pralines to our Christmas party, and she would explain how this was her family tradition. I never got the recipe, but it's okay because they were made by her, and that's I knew that the love and the care that went into that and her sharing. Or another friend who makes mustard and little jars. Explaining how difficult it is to make mustard, and we bought some at homemade mustard at a local farmers market this past weekend. It doesn't quite meet Sasha's, so it's
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 so
interesting,
true.
right?
I love it because, and when I came down to Florida, we didn't know anybody. And then the community that sprouted up and the potlucks. I never grew up with potluck. We didn't,
Yeah.
it just didn't happen. So the bringing together everybody else's recipes and especially, that apps and things, you get to know their specialty. And so I have friends, oh my gosh, her Swiss cheese black olive bake thing. I've never tried
Ooh,
to make it myself, but it is absolutely extraordinary. And this one's tomato pie, and this one is this. So I love that the table comes together in so many different ways. And then we have the cookie exchanges, I know the holiday cookie exchanges,
right.
where again, you can have all these amazing things from people get to make their best fun recipe that they love and can share. So,
And you don't have to make all the cookies. You just make
and you
like
don't
two
have to
dozen
make
and you
all,
walk away with like 20 dozens. Like, oh
yeah,
my God, like where did this magic come from? Why didn't I know about this before?
exactly, exactly. So, having a potluck, having community tables, they really truly are the best, and it brings out the best in people. And so that might bring me to, you have a book, you have a journal. Tell us more about your whole platform. You have a new newly launched podcast show called Family Tree Food and Stories, and then you're branching out, all pun intended, into these other avenues. So tell us more about that and this little amazing book that you're holding up.
So here's a picture. This is the book. This
Yeah.
is the author's copy, which is why you see the stripe across it for proofing. But it's called My Family Tree Food and Stories, your personal journal of favorite and memorable foods, recipes, and stories to remember and share. And what we do, it's 273 pages. And what we do is we explain to people or show them how to take a simple story and add it to a recipe or a meal or something that they've created or share. Or it could be as simple as peanut butter and jelly. If there's a story around your particular peanut butter or your jelly, then write the story about it or give it to your kids and have the younger children get involved and what do they like. So it's a wonderful way to celebrate family, the foods, the stories that make us who we are, because there's heritage in who we are from what grandma did or grandpa did, but it really comes down to what happened at the table,
Mhm.
where the connection is so much, I don't want to say deeper, it's different, right? We tend to let a lot down at the table. We tend to expose ourselves at the table in ways that we don't even realize are happening. So, simple things like you're exhausted, so you may say the wrong thing, but you eat the peas anyway. Right? or or
I
what
don't like
happened when
peas.
mom gave you the liver? Like, ooh, right? Chicken livers I'll eat, beef livers, bah,
Mm.
not my thing. But there's so much that happens at the table. So what we've done is we've created this book to actually show you how to do this. And in each chapter, meaning that there's appetizers, there's main courses, there's desserts. The titles are, all done to show what happens at breakfast. We say start the day right with family. And then every chapter has stories that have been contributed by people that we've met or know or shared their stories along the way, and they're short. They're not long. We're not writing a novel. We're just making a moment. And so you get a chance to, share who you are, what you do, the recipes, the instructions, things that you've tweaked. There's a page in the back of each little edition where you can add special notes and pictures. And at the very, very end, we have we've added why this is important, a little note about that, and then I can see here. That's my mom's family tree. Oops, there we go. Let's see, my
Oh, you have
mom's
a
family
family
tree.
tree. Beautiful. And for those
And then
listening,
the little notes
this
on
is what.
food. And then
Yeah.
you can add your own in the back. And then we finally have gratitudes and graces at the very end that you can
Yeah.
add, because we should be grateful about our family, even if we're not connected to them or we were adopted or whoever it is. Family is who we make it. And without them, we wouldn't be here literally and figuratively, right?
Right. Absolutely. And for those that are just listening, this is being recorded for YouTube, so you can actually have some visuals as well. So, Nancy, I love what you were just saying by landing on, well, what I would say, family is can be anybody.
Mhm.
And if it is a coworker or if it is maybe a neighbor, somebody who's reached out, because yes, a lot of people have been alone. One of the
Yeah.
little vignettes, as you've been sharing, is from a friend of mine whose parents worked. They worked nights, they worked overnight. And so she was a latchkey kid,
Mhm.
and her meals were TV dinners by the TV by herself over and over again. Unless and until then, there were other opportunities as well with broader families and all those experiences. But for a long time, that could be part of somebody's journal is if it's
That's a
not
food story. Yeah.
it's a food story, it still is. And what did it make you feel like, and how has that now um, entered into how you brought up your own families and things like that. So everybody does have a food story no matter what it
Absolutely.
is. And
It could be a restaurant story.
it's a restaurant story, and there are plenty.
There's tons of those.
Yeah,
Yeah, my husband and I, there was a
those can be the
restaurant.
funniest, craziest ones
Right?
too.
So
Right.
there's a four-star restaurant up in the area in Westchester that my husband and I had discovered. I mean, I'd heard about it, and everybody said, "Oh, it's going to take you 6 months to get a reservation. You'll never get it." It's like our 25th wedding anniversary, and we were driving. And we found. I was like, "Oh my God, there it is! Let's go and see if we can get a reservation." And they said, "Well." If you can come at 5 o'clock, and this was like 2 days later, we can get you in. I said, I can be there at 5 o'clock. That's fine. It doesn't matter. This was food as theater. It was amazing. And they had no lights. Everything was by candle. And I came back from the ladies' room and I was on crutches from an accident. And I said, Bob, we are cutting the cord from electricity. I look amazing in candlelight. So our food story added a few candles as well. And
Oh, that's
yeah, food is
beautiful.
theater. It really is.
Food is theater. I have to throw in this one other story that you reminded me of in my 20s. So it was one of my early lessons in, if there's a line out the door in one restaurant and then next door it's empty, take a hint about that. Why is
Right?
that possible? Why is that true? And that my husband at the time, we were in Paris and the guidebook said, try this place. And so we went in and it was very, very quiet. And then something happened, the whole ordering, everything, you just had to take what you got. But we could hear screaming in
Oh
French in the
no.
back and clanging. And then apparently the chef walked out, and then something happened out front. And all I know is it ended with somebody going blah, 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 and bashing somebody else over the head with a baguette. And so the baguette
Oh
broke over
no.
somebody's head, and food was theater. And we just sat there very quietly.
Paris is a
It
great
was
place for
hilarious.
food stories. And I have one other one, which is kind of, I think food can also be a weapon. And
Like a
I'm sitting
baguette.
here.
Yeah.
Well, right. And
Yeah.
I remember I was at school. I had gone first a freshman in college, and there was a mixer between the guys' college and the school that I was at. And that weekend, two guys, wanted to go out with me. It's like, well, I'm flattered, thank you. So I go out with the one who ends up being the nerd, and the one I really should have gone out with ends up throwing. I found out later he threw a roll and hit the head of the nerd
Oh, they were in the
at
same room at
lunch,
the
at
same
dinner,
time.
at his school one day. He's like,
Oh my
okay, I
God.
guess I didn't hear that till later on, and the good guy won out. So
Oh my God. And the proverbial food fight,
yeah, yeah,
which
food
I've
fight,
never
like
been in and
okay.
I don't care to. Oh my God, that is
Wonk,
so
leave her
funny.
alone. She's mine. Okay.
Oh wow. So Nancy, your newly launched podcast, tell us more about that and what is it that you're hoping for that show? Are you going to be having guests or are you and Sylvia are
Yeah.
going to be sharing stories within?
We are doing a mishmash of everything, just like, do you mix your peas with your potatoes? So we're doing a combination of where Sylvie and I are talking and bantering about things from superstitions to traditions to history of food and things that we've done and things that we've heard other people do, to short little vignettes, the one that you heard about my dad and his favorite food and sort of what happened during hospice, which is a rather interesting and poignant short little story.
Mhm.
And then we are also having guests. So it's a combination because food doesn't happen by itself. We don't eat
Right.
alone. And sometimes we do. And those moments alone where we do the short little vignette stories, I think express a different way of how to think about meals and a little bit more of and the connection to food in a heartfelt, emotional way. They can be funny, but they're ways to figure out how do you recount those stories and tell them to others. And they're 5 minutes long they go from 5 minutes to 15, 20 minutes, depending upon the episode that we're doing. So we like to sort of mix it up, just like you got to mix up something in order to make a dish.
That's right. We got to mix it all in
Yeah.
together. That's really beautiful. So, and this is on your logo, which is beautiful. So, tell us more about the family tree aspect of your
Yeah, well,
platform.
I started to get the idea too originally before I met Sylvia with thinking about my dad. And as he was older and I was taking care of him from 1,200 miles away, and my mom and every sort of, what hit the fan.
Hmm.
Um, when we got them settled in, back into their own home, the stories that my dad would tell about family and the relationships that we had. And my mom, even growing up over the years, would say that her mother in law, my grandmother, my dad's side, made the best lentil soup that she's ever had. And she never got the recipe. But rhubarb wine was one that you'll hear about on the show, which was my grandmother's recipe. And food played an important part of what life was about. I think more so in I say days gone by, I sound like I'm 100 million years old. But growing up, it was a different time. We had black and white television that then became color and the first man on the moon. So there was a lot of change that happened, and food played a part. I'm trying to get an astronaut as a guest because think about the food in space. Tang, who hasn't heard of Tang, right? So some of the fun things, but it's important to really share those stories. And family is family is really where we learn about food and
Yeah.
the relationship to food and those that we love and care about. And traditions are passed down, whether you're Italian or you're Greek or you're Irish or you're German or you're English or Hispanic. It's part of who we are. It's that rich culture and heritage. So family tree, and then food, and then the stories, because it's not just a recipe. It's what you felt, what you taste, what you heard, what you said around a table or sitting on the floor.
I love it. And it really, there've been recipes for our lives because this is the fabric that has been
Yeah.
stitched together through cultures, through the dawn of time.
And
And
we say
yeah,
the first couple that was ever talked about actually shared a food story, and that was Adam and Eve.
that's cute. And you
We
talked
all
about that on
started
your
with a
first,
food
yeah.
story, right? I mean, how
We all
silly is
started
that?
with it. Apparently, so they say in the beginning was an apple. I'm sure there was
Yeah,
a lot more
yeah.
to it,
And there was Adam
berries
and
and
Eve and a
yeah.
dirty little snake.
Oh, apparently that's what they say. So, Nancy, where can people find you? And tell us what else, any other little stories or nuggets that we should know about moving forward.
Well, just to talk about the story real quickly before well, next time you sit down at a table, think about some of the foods that you've had as kids. And if you haven't shared that with your children or other younger people, or even your spouse or a friend or a partner, why not have a dinner together and say, what was your favorite meal as a kid? And maybe make all those meals together. And, what was your favorite cookie, or what was your favorite side dish, or what was your favorite peanut butter and jelly? Did you cut the crusts off? Or I had a friend who only ate hot dogs that were peeled. Like, oh,
Oh God! Oh jeez!
strange stories, right?
Yeah,
So have a conversation, not just about. Don't forget politics. Talk about food.
yeah,
Talk about food and relationships. Get politics out of it. Like, please, whatever you do, like,
yeah.
hear one more political story ever again in my life. I'd be happy not to hear about it again. Just
There you
whatever.
go. There you
And
go.
then there's a lot that the food brings a lot of emotion together. And where you can find us, you can go to podcast.familytreefoodstories.com, and we're there. And you can also, it's Family Tree Food and Stories is the podcast. So just Google it and hopefully you'll find us really fast. It's Nancy May and Sylvia Lovely, my co-host, who is in Lexington, Kentucky, and brings another flavor of food to the story, because foods are different from East Coast to West Coast to North, South. I mean, California, sourdough bread, like, we didn't have that in the Northeast. So it's interesting.
It's very interesting, and this is wonderful to be able to utilize the technologies to zoom in together, the
Yeah.
two of you from the different perspectives and backgrounds, and this is just beautiful. So, Nancy May, I really appreciate this time together, and I look forward to more stories, more conversations with you. And you're amazing. The family tree, I love the concept. It's beautiful to write down the things that you want to share, things that you might want to pass on to somebody else, but mostly things for yourself. Like, what is your own recipe book? So
Yeah.
I just love what you're doing.
There's nothing more fun and heartfelt to go through your old recipe books that maybe mom gave you and see her handwriting in it, especially if she's gone. Like, my mom passed almost 4 years ago. And when I looked through some old recipe books, I think, oh my God, there's her handwriting. It made me feel that she was there with me, even
Yeah.
though she's not. So those little touches, if you have a recipe book that you share, write in it, make it dirty, make it messy, put, even so you'll laugh at this. I just have to share one more little visual with people. So because as we're creating this book, we're looking at the index, and how are you going to write well, there's even a stain on the index.
I love it. And did that just quote happen to happen, or you designed it like that?
I designed it that way.
You did design it like that.
it's
But
it's
what
an illustration, yeah. But
well, that's
but
genius though.
the stains, the greases, the
Yeah.
pencil marks, the pen marks, the food stains on our recipe books.
Yeah.
which is kind of why I'm sad to see so many things happening on the internet because we don't keep those pages.
Right.
Hopefully, this one will be one you keep and share and get one for your friends, your family, and your kids, and make it a cherished event and activity to do together. It doesn't happen to have to happen all at once. You can just be it's one story at a time,
It's
really.
so true. And I will go ahead and just say there I learned recently there is somebody has the library of cookbooks. There's a
Oh,
place where it's the library of cookbooks. And you have reminded me that I used to love just going, even as a little kid pre-reading.
oh, the
I
photos
would
and these
the
stories
photos
and
and
yeah,
and I learned a lot by those books. And so going back to that very tactile thing, the best bread, the banana bread that has all the sblobs of the batter that's spilt over. And
right.
again, with all of the recipes that are full
A
of the
little
dog
stuck sugar
ears
on
and
it,
the
right?
stuck sugar and all the stains, and then the notes written in there. It really is. It's the digital is great, very, very, very handy. I made the best chocolate chip cookies of my life because I pulled something from the internet on my phone. And also, that's what you were just talking about. There's
Yeah.
still something about the feel and the visual of the handwritten note and what's in these books.
The sight, the sound, the senses,
Yeah,
everything. The
all of it.
sound of your mom's voice, the sound of a friend's voice, or your husband, your kids, whatever it is, and yeah, we even got some trees.
Oh, those are beautiful. Oh, great.
Yeah,
That's
I
wonderful.
brand it up for you.
Genius. That's that business corporate side. That's just
Yeah,
great.
but
Nancy
yes,
May with Family Tree Food and Stories. This is a beautifully kismet conversation, and I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
thank you. And as we say, every meal is a story, and every story is a feast. Ciao.
Ciao. Thanks for listening, everybody. Please be sure to like, review, and share this story and many other. This is Lasting Conversations. We get to the heart of everything.